Lily was a 20-year-old young woman fighting an uphill battle against life. Ever since childhood, her biggest dream had been to become an actress. Her father would always say, "You belong on stage, my girl. One day you're going to be someone great." But fate had carved out a very different path for her. A year ago, she lost her father in a tragic accident, and his death shattered not only Lily's life, but also her mother's. After the accident, her mother fell into a deep depression, losing all the joy she once had. She barely functioned, relying on medication just to make it through the day. With no one else to support them, Lily had to step up. She took care of her mother while juggling 2 jobs just to keep them afloat. But that wasn't her biggest battle. Cancer was silently consuming her from within. She had been diagnosed a year ago, yet seeking treatment was never an option. Hospital bills were beyond her reach, and if she stopped working, who would look after her mother? So she kept delaying her treatment, pushing herself past her limits, pretending she was fine. But her body was beginning to betray her. That night, after a long shift at work, she felt her vision blur. Her legs weakened beneath her, and before she knew it, she collapsed onto the freezing sidewalk. People walked past her, barely sparing a glance. Some hesitated for a moment, but quickly averted their eyes. No one stopped, no one helped, until, out of the moving crowd, one man stepped forward and knelt beside her. Keanu Reeves was strolling through the city as he usually did, without any show or spectacle. Suddenly, he noticed a young girl collapse on the sidewalk. The indifference of the people passing by angered him. Without hesitation, he knelt down, placed his hand on Lily's cold forehead, and gently shook her. "Hey, can you hear me?" But there was no response from Lily. Her pulse was weak. Keanu, remaining calm, immediately called an ambulance and carefully lifted Lily into his arms, carrying her to a safer place. When the paramedics arrived, they examined her and confirmed that she was severely exhausted. They rushed her to the hospital. Keanu could have simply gotten into his car and continued with his day, but he didn't. He stayed at the hospital doors, waiting for hours. Who was this girl? Why had she collapsed on the street? Why wasn't anyone there for her? After some time, a doctor approached him and provided an update. Lily was in the intensive care unit. Her body had completely shut down from exhaustion. But there was something even worse. Keanu learned that she was battling cancer. At that moment, Keanu Reeves knew he had to help this girl. He had to save her. Lily slowly opened her eyes, her vision blurry, her body weak. The soft beeping of medical monitors filled the air, and the faint scent of antiseptic reminded her she was in a hospital. She turned her head slightly and saw a man sitting in the corner of the room. At first, she thought she was dreaming, her exhausted mind playing tricks on her. But no, Keanu Reeves was really there. Her breath hitched in her throat. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. "Are you real?" Keanu let out a gentle chuckle. "I think so," he said with a small smile. "I found you unconscious on the street. We were really worried about you." Lily lowered her gaze, embarrassment creeping in. She was used to being invisible, just another struggling girl that the world ignored. But Keanu was different. He was looking at her as if she mattered. He could sense there was more to her story. And with a kind but firm voice, he asked, "Will you tell me what happened?" Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I lost my dad last year," she said, her voice trembling. "It was a tragic accident. Everything changed after that. My mom, she wasn't the same anymore. It was like I lost her too. She stopped caring, stopped living. Now she just gets by on medication, barely even noticing I'm there. So I take care of her and work 2 jobs to keep us afloat. But my biggest problem isn't just that." She hesitated, her eyes welling up with tears. "I have cancer." Keanu's expression darkened, his heart sinking as he processed her words. "When my dad was alive," Lily continued, "he told me we'd fight it together, that I shouldn't be afraid. But when he died, I just gave up. I stopped treatment. How could I afford it? If I stopped working, who would take care of my mom?" Keanu exhaled, shaking his head slightly. He had heard stories of people struggling, but this was different. This was a girl who had sacrificed her own life for someone else's. "And acting?" he asked softly. "Your face lit up when you talked about your dad. Was that your dream?" Lily gave a bittersweet smile, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, once upon a time, my dad wanted me to go to drama school. He believed in me more than anyone else ever did, but life had other plans for me." Keanu took a deep breath, absorbing every word. She was barely holding on, burdened by grief, responsibilities, and an illness that threatened to take everything from her. Lily clenched her fist slightly, her breathing shaky. "When my dad was alive, I felt strong," she admitted. "With him, I believed I could get through anything. But when he died, it was like I died too. My mom locked herself in her room for days, forgot to eat, forgot how to live. She'd tell me, 'You have to be strong.' But how do you stay strong when you've already shattered?" Her eyes met Keanu's, and for the first time she saw something in them. Understanding. Not pity, not judgment, just pure empathy. "You know," she continued, her voice barely audible, "sometimes being strong just means forcing yourself to keep breathing." Keanu felt a lump in his throat. Lily had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders for so long. But how much longer? Could she keep fighting alone? She swallowed hard and continued. "When my dad was here, I wasn't scared to go to the hospital because he was with me. But now I'm terrified. Every time I step into a hospital, I feel like I'm signing my own death sentence. One day, a doctor will tell me it's too late, that I waited too long. But what choice do I have, Keanu? What choice do I have?" For the first time in a long time, Keanu Reeves wasn't just an actor or a bystander in someone else's story. He was a part of it. Now, he wasn't just listening. He was realizing that this girl's fate was in his hands. And whatever it took, he was going to change it. Keanu went to the hospital administration to ask about Lily's condition and the cost of her treatment. The doctors told him that her cancer had progressed significantly and that the treatment would cost $450,000. Without hesitation, Keanu said take her into surgery immediately. The doctors were shocked. Without Lily knowing, Keanu covered all the costs. That night, she was taken into surgery. The operation lasted for hours, and Keanu waited at the hospital until morning, hoping for good news. A week later, Lily had fully regained consciousness. She wanted to find out how her surgery had been paid for, but no one would tell her. Finally, when she asked the doctors, they hesitated. Before revealing the truth, Keanu Reeves paid for everything. Lily couldn't hold back her tears. He wasn't just her idol. He was a real-life hero. But Keanu's help didn't end there. He opened a private account for Lily and deposited enough money to cover all her conservatory expenses. Now, only he and Lily knew about it. He hadn't just given her back her life. He had given her back her dreams. Years later, Lily had become a successful actress. She walked down the red carpet, smiling. But deep down, she still remembered the girl she once was. During an interview, a reporter asked her, "Who has been your biggest inspiration in your career?" Lily's eyes filled with emotion as she smiled and replied, "Keanu Reeves. He's not just an actor. He's the man who saved my life." That day, her dreams had come true, because once upon a time, someone had believed in her when she had nothing left to believe. in